This is why China's new space weapon is a big threat to Taiwan. China is posing a fresh threat. It is constructing a new weapon, a device that can take control of satellites. According to Americans, this is the case. It is a portion of a top-secret intelligence document created by the CIA. China is developing advanced cyber weapons, according to a recent report that was leaked. By imitating the signals that adversary satellite operators send out, China hopes to deceive them into either being completely taken over or malfunctioning during crucial moments in combat. According to the Financial Daily, that would make it impossible for satellites, which typically operate in groups, to communicate with one another, transfer commands to weapon systems, or report back visual and intercepted electronic data. Washington has never stated whether it possesses comparable capabilities. The claim comes a day after General B. Chance Saltzman, head of the U.S. Space Force, stated that Washington is facing a new era of dangers beyond Earth from countries like Russia and China that go much further than jamming. According to a stolen U.S. intelligence dossier, China is developing advanced cyber weapons to seize control of adversary satellites and render them worthless for data communications or surveillance during combat. According to the U.S., China's efforts to build up the capacity to deny, exploit, or hijack hostile satellites are a critical component of its aim to control information, which Beijing views as a crucial war-fighting domain. The Financial Times examined the CIA-marked document, which was one of dozens purportedly supplied by a 21-year-old U.S. Air Guardsman in the worst leaks of American information in more than a decade. The paper was released this year and was examined by the CIA. This weapon will be able to exploit, deny, quote-unquote, or hijack competing satellites. This Chinese weapon has the potential to render satellites worthless after use. They won't be able to carry out surveillance or send data signals. In actuality, this is how the Chinese weapon is described in the leaked dossier. Their cyber capabilities would allow China to seize control of a satellite, rendering it ineffective to support communications, weapons, or intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance systems, the document claims. Taiwan has recognized the clear threat. It is modernizing its communication network. A Chinese strike shouldn't be able to destroy the new system. As you can see, Taiwan cannot function without satellite communication. The PLA will attempt to take them out, and by doing so, they will be able to cut Taiwan off from the rest of the world if China decides to invade communication networks, which will be a clear target. This is a genuine threat, and Taiwan has no choice but to take numerous precautions. Additionally, it has declared that new military drills will start the following month. The defense minister of Taiwan stated this: "Naturally, the communist threat to invade Taiwan and the recent military training in the area are the basis for our exercises. To assess the readiness of the armed forces to execute defensive operations and their capabilities for battle planning, the Combat Planning Department has developed demanding scenarios for computer-based combat, post, and field drills. Allies of Taiwan are also getting ready. U.S. and Philippine drills were held this week. It was their biggest annual military exercise ever. On Basco Island, it took place. Located close to southern Taiwan, this is a secluded island. According to military analysis, this island might become the front line if China invades Taiwan, because Taiwan's eastern coast can be accessed by the Chinese Navy through this island. The plan first became noticeable in the area earlier last month. They deployed a carrier with aircraft. It is known as Shandong. The Shandong carrier made a passage across these waters, but they weren't the only ones. Fighter jet training then followed. To these Chinese provocations, the U.S. is responding. Along with regional partners, they too are conducting extra drills. Australian defenses are also being strengthened in the meanwhile. It's implemented a new defense tactic. This week, the policy was revealed. Although China was not mentioned by name, the report made clear the dragon's threats. The Australian Defence Forces are currently being bolstered. By 2025, guided missiles will be produced, according to the company. However, Australia had originally set a deadline of 2027. In reality, the proposal is ancient. They are currently pursuing it with greater urgency. It will receive additional funding. This clearly demonstrates a realignment of priorities because we're talking about $1.6 billion. Although Australia aims to switch to tactical weapons, it currently has more land-based weapons. To attack distant targets, it intends to launch more missiles. That is what guided missiles are. In addition to being able to hit moving targets, they may be manipulated while in the air. The course of events is obvious. China has not ruled out starting a war to annex Taiwan, so the PLA is stepping up its preparations. In order to expand its arsenal, it is adding more weaponry. It is provoking the Taiwanese military with its military actions, and Taiwan and its Western allies are retaliating with more military exercises and more weapons. The position of France is already known to you. The United Kingdom is presently here. London has outlined its position on China. James Cleverly, their foreign secretary, has spoken. Through influence and involvement, he intends to deal with China. He claims that while he wants to talk to China and try to enlist its support on problems like climate change, he also wants to call China out on its violations of human rights. How does Taiwan fare? Whitley said, "A battle over the island will be disastrous." Permit me to cite a speech. A battle across the strait would not just be a disaster for humankind. $2.6 trillion worth of world trade would be destroyed. The thought of the ensuing human and financial destruction makes me cringe. Thus, it is crucial that neither party acts unilaterally to alter the current situation. In a cunning move, he has also demanded information from China over its military development on the high seas. Do you know what China's response is? It is known as London's evaluation nonsense. China follows a defensive national defense strategy. China's own security is the primary concern of a defense construction. It is utter folly to claim that China is expanding its military. London is interested in doing business with Beijing. It also intends to militarily encircle China. It's hardly the first power to attempt to tread this line. There is no compromise with China, which is the issue. A cyber capacity like this would be significantly more powerful than anything Russia has used in Ukraine, where electronic warfare specialists have used a brute force strategy with little success. These attacks, which were first created in the 1980s, tried to block communications between low-orbit SpaceX satellites and their ground terminals by broadcasting on frequencies that are similar from truck-mounted jamming equipment like the Trident-2. Aiming to imitate the signals that adversary spacecraft operators send out, China's most ambitious cyber attacks want to fool the satellites into being entirely taken over or failing at critical points in a battle. China would be able to take control of a satellite, rendering it ineffective to support communications, weapons, or intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance systems, according to the confidential U.S. dossier. The existence of comparable capabilities in the U.S. has never been confirmed. Taiwan is working to develop a communications network that can withstand a Chinese strike after observing how crucial satellite communications have been to the military of Ukraine. In order to ensure bandwidth in the case of war or calamities, it is experimenting with non-geostationary satellite receivers in 700 spots throughout Taiwan, while also recruiting investors to launch its own satellite provider, according to a January story in the Financial Times. In a sign of how important satellite communications have become in conflict, a Russian cyber attack was successful in rendering hundreds of Ukrainian military routers from US-based Viasat inoperable in the hours leading up to its full-scale invasion on February 24th of last year. At the time, the strike was dubbed catastrophic by a Ukrainian official. in Poland, Italy, and Germany, where several hundred wind turbines were impacted. Although clever, the Viasat hack entailed accessing the business's computer systems and delivering commands to the modems that made them malfunction. The report that was leaked states that China's objectives are much more sophisticated. According to analysis, they would try to disable satellites' ability to interact with one another, transmit signals and orders to weapon systems, or give back intercepted electronic and visual data. Satellites often work in interconnected clusters. According to U.S. military authorities, China has made substantial advancements in the development of military space technologies, especially satellite communication. General B. Chance Saltzman, head of the U.S. Space Force, testified before Congress last month that Beijing was actively pursuing counter-space capabilities in an effort to realize its space dream of becoming the dominant power outside of the Earth's atmosphere by 2045. According to him, China is still making strong investments in technology that is intended to interfere with, undermine, and destroy our ability to use space. According to Saltzman, China's military has set up 347 satellites, 35 of which had been launched in the previous 6 months, to follow, monitor, target, and destroy U.S. forces in any future confrontation. Recommended the FT View, the editorial staff. Security and control in a new era of China. The U.S. has an asymmetric edge in the cyber and space domains, according to Charlie Moore, a retired Air Force general who previously served as the deputy of the U.S. Cyber Command. China understands the superiority that the U.S. has in the space and cyber domains, so they are very interested in not only improving their own capabilities, but also capitalizing on what we refer to as a first-mover advantage in both domains, said Moore, who is now a visiting professor at Vanderbilt University in Tennessee. They are putting the finishing touches on all of the abilities they wish to have, both defensively and offensively, as well as in terms of ISR, or intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. They are operating at a maximum efficiency, he said. Neither the Pentagon nor the National Security Council would comment. There was no quick comment from the Chinese administration. According to experts, in order to facilitate a military strike, China may take down Taiwanese computer systems that manage transportation, utilities, and defense activities. If there is a war and the Chinese shut down the power grid through a cyber attack, that may not completely shut down Taiwanese defense systems, but it's going to have an impact, Sun added. Alexander Hong, the head of a Taipei-based foundation for military strategy research, claimed that successful cyber attacks on financial institutions and other targets would erode public confidence. Internet connectivity connects every piece of Taiwan's critical infrastructure, he continued, and this connectivity might result in both great difficulties and a generalized panic among the populace. Huang remarked, if there is a cyber attack, all of these systems go offline. It would be a type of decapitation if the communication node were destroyed. Advanced conventional weapons, such as new submarines and aircraft, would be of little use during a debilitating cyber attack, he said, adding that it's unclear whether Taiwan's government has taken enough measures to guard against a major cyber attack. The President of State and General Secretary of the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, Xi Jinping, has made his intentions for Taiwan clear. The task of complete reunification of China must be achieved, and it will definitely be achieved. Although Xi's timeline for reunification is unclear, there is growing worry that Beijing will launch military operations against Taipei within the next 10 years, endangering not only Taiwan's democratic government and the lives of its citizens, but also possibly igniting the first direct military conflict between China and the United States. This would be a first for a nuclear-armed nation and would also threaten to undermine Taiwan's democratic government. In addition to being innovative in terms of its resilience to nuclear weapons, any operation against Taiwan is likely to be noteworthy for how prominently it will incorporate cyber operations. Several questions are raised by this. What strategic perspective does China have on cyber operations? Who in the Chinese military is principally accountable for these actions? What objectives would Beijing have in a Taiwan situation for its cyber operations? What are Taiwan's cyber weaknesses and China's advantages in this regard? Finally, what steps may be taken to lessen this threat? In addition, offensive cyber attacks against Taiwan are being carried out by Chinese hackers with the aim of manipulating, upsetting, or even destroying vital infrastructure and daily operations. In times of peace, these operations take the shape of ransomware, distributed denial-of-service attacks, and the dissemination of other malware. For instance, in 2020, Beijing utilized the Cold Lock ransomware virus to attack more than 10 important targets in Taiwan's infrastructure, including the state-owned CPC Corporation, which provides more than 25% of the island's gas stations with petroleum, natural gas, and gasoline. This stopped any kind of electronic payment from being accepted at petrol stations across the nation. 2 unnamed semiconductor businesses in Taiwan were apparently also impacted by the Cold Lock operation. These cyber attacks would be more active during a war. Everything from civilian telecommunications networks to military command and control systems would be targeted by Chinese hackers in an effort to disrupt, weaken, or destroy it. Power networks would go dark, air defense systems would stop functioning, and crucial government functions would cease to exist. In order to create confusion, weaken Taiwan's defenses, and increase Chinese operational flexibility of movement, these operations would be targeted precision strikes against important enemy targets, would probably result in a U.S. response. Therefore, it would also be necessary to take on this task. That's all. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel and ring the bell icon to get more videos.